It began with a sound that didn't belong in a home built on vows and years and shared dreams. The door didn't just open, get slammed. Hard, sharp, final. Like Amanda wanted the whole house to feel her entrance before she even said a word. The impact thudded through the walls, through the hardwood floor, through my spine. I looked up from my screen, blinking away lines of code like they were fading stars at dawn. And there she stood, framed in the doorway of the home office I had spent 2 years building and rebuilding myself inside. Amanda, arms crossed, jaw tight enough to crack teeth, eyes filled with something colder than anger, contempt. She didn't say hello. She didn't breathe. She attacked. So this is what you call working. She snapped, the word working twisted like a knife she meant to bury deep. Her gaze darted across my 3 monitors as if they were criminal evidence. 3 screens full of code, 3 screens full of whatever this is, and still no money coming in. God, Ethan. She shook her head, scoffing. Who are you anymore? My fingers hovered above the keyboard, still mid-sentence in a function I'd been debugging for hours. I wasn't shocked, not really. Surprised, yes, like a man caught in a storm he'd seen forming but hoped might pass. Lately, her patience had been evaporating one sigh at a time. I'm building something, I said, keeping my voice steady. Slow and steady, and I'm closer than you think. She laughed, but it wasn't laughter. It was a harsh, jagged sound, full of bitterness sharpened by disappointment. Closer to what, Ethan? Another 12-hour day in here pretending you're running Google from a folding chair. You've been close for 2 years. It's a fantasy. She waved a hand toward the office like it was a graveyard. This whole thing, a delusion. I stood up slowly, pushing the chair back. I didn't tower, didn't intimidate, but I held myself with a steadiness she'd forgotten I had. Say what you need to say, I told her evenly. But don't stand there and mock something you haven't even tried to understand. Oh, I understand plenty. She shot back, taking a step inside. I married someone who promised me a future, a life, stability, not a startup graveyard in our spare bedroom. My jaw tightened. You mean the same spare bedroom that paid our bills for the first 2 years while I freelanced day and night to keep us afloat? That spare bedroom. She rolled her eyes, her words slicing sharper. Spare me the noble martyr speech. I married a man with a spine. Someone who faced the world. Not someone who hides in a room because he's afraid of failing. A laugh escaped me, low, humorless, edged with fatigue. You want to talk about failure. Let's talk about how you gave up on me the second things didn't go according to your Pinterest perfect timeline. Her face flushed pink, but not from embarrassment, from rage. Don't turn this on me. I'm not turning anything, I said, stepping closer. You walked in here not to talk, but to humiliate. You don't want solutions, Amanda. You want surrender. Her eyes narrowed, glinting with something cold. I want a husband who acts like a grown man, not someone clinging to an app no one's ever heard of. My breath steadied. Well, maybe, I said quietly. If you'd stuck around long enough to ask what it is, you'd realize it's not just an app. It's my late father's architecture, rebuilt from scratch. The same man who taught me never to settle. Oh, please, she snapped. Don't hide behind your dead dad to justify wasting your life. That line hit like an open-handed slap straight to the center of my chest. The air thinned, the room shrank. I couldn't move, couldn't blink. I just stared at her and felt something sharp inside me shift. You know what, Amanda? I said, quietly but clearly. Maybe the real mistake wasn't the app. Maybe it was thinking you were in this with me. She scoffed dramatically, grabbed the door handle, already halfway out. Keep pretending, she said over her shoulder. One day you'll realize you traded a real marriage for fairy tales and JavaScript. Then the door slammed again, not as loud as before, but somehow more final. Like punctuation, like the universe confirming an ending I hadn't chosen. Silence filled the room, heavy, suffocating, radioactive. It wasn't peace, it was the fallout after an explosion. And in that stillness, one thing crystallized with brutal clarity. I wasn't going to let her define my story. Not anymore. The next afternoon, I picked up flowers, tulips, on the way home. Her favorite, soft orange with tiny speckles of crimson. They always reminded her of sunsets in Colorado. I remembered that. I remembered everything, even the things she pretended didn't matter anymore. Maybe it was a peace offering, maybe it was denial, or maybe, just maybe, I hoped yesterday's words came from anger, not truth. I stepped quietly through the front door. No music, no candles, no dinner on the stove, just a house full of silence. Then I saw her. Amanda sat at the kitchen table like a poised statue, hair pinned neatly, crisp blouse, posture impeccable. In front of her sat a manila folder, flat, official, cold. She didn't look up. "You're home early," she said with a tone so neutral it felt rehearsed. "I brought flowers," I said softly, lifting them a little. Her eyes finally rose, not to the tulips, but to my face. They held no warmth, no apology, no trace of yesterday's hurt, just vacancy. "Put them in water." I hesitated because something felt wrong. "Off dead, Amanda, about yesterday." She slid the folder across the table with 2 fingers. "Sign those." My stomach dropped. Divorce papers, not after months of therapy, not after years of trying, not after countless nights spent untangling grief and resentment. No, just like this, one day after one fight, the easiest fight she'd ever been waiting to start. "You're serious?" I asked quietly. She nodded. "Already spoke to a lawyer. Mediation is easier. No need to drag this out and make it messy." The tulips sagged slightly in my grip. I set them on the counter gently, because something in me still didn't want to break anything. "Amanda, we've been together 7 years, exactly." She gave a small, strange smile. 7 years of me pretending you would eventually catch up. You said you believed in me." I said what I needed to say to believe in us. She corrected. "That's different." I felt heat rise in my chest. "So that's it. No talk, no effort, just signatures and a goodbye. It's cleaner this way." I picked up the folder. Her name was signed in blue ink on every line. Sharp strokes, perfect loops, no hesitation. "You didn't even ask me if I wanted this." She tilted her head, expression flat. "Do you?" My voice softened. "I don't know, but you didn't ask." Silence thickened like fog. Amanda's gaze drifted to the tulips again. "I used to love those," she murmured. "Funny how fast things fade." And in that moment, that exact moment, something in me finally let go. Not with anger, not with rage, with acceptance. I walked down the hall, opened the closet, and pulled out our suitcase, the one we hadn't used since Colorado. I returned to the bedroom, folded her clothes, her shoes, her books, her skincare bottles, her sweaters. No theatrics, no yelling, just closure. When I placed the suitcase by the front door, Amanda finally blinked. "You're not even going to yell," she whispered. "No speech, no." I said, "You wanted this clean, here it is." She stared at the suitcase like it was a mirror showing her a version of herself she didn't recognize. "Wow," she muttered. "You packed me like I was optional. You made the first move." I said quietly, "I'm just finishing it." She swallowed, then stood, walked to the door, opened it, but she didn't grab the suitcase. She hesitated, just for a second, one small, fragile second, then she walked out. The door closed behind her, not slammed, not angry, but soft. Barely audible, a farewell in a whisper. The tulips remained on the counter. By morning, they had wilted. Just like us, the courtroom. I never imagined our marriage ending in a courtroom, but life rarely asks permission. A stiff wooden chair, a beige room, a judge with a monotonous voice. Amanda whispering something smug to her attorney. Her hair slicked back, her blazer neat, her posture perfect. She looked like someone ready to perform victimhood for an audience. I looked like someone whose ghost still lingered somewhere in the home we once shared. The hearing began. Amanda's lawyer rose first. "Your Honor, my client sacrificed her career to support Mr. Ellis's delusions of grandeur. She provided stability while he pursued an unprofitable software concept." Amanda cut in loudly. "A fantasy project, just lines of code and ego." A few people chuckled. My fist tightened, but I remained silent. Then my lawyer, Diane, stood. "Your Honor, the intellectual property known as Drift Cloud was developed exclusively from Mr. Ellis's personal inheritance, funds from his late parents' estate." A stack of documents slid across the table. "Amanda Ellis," Diane continued, has no legal claim to the platform, the vehicle, or any premarital assets. Amanda leaned forward. She skimmed the documents, then froze. Her lawyer stuttered. Well, there's the emotional labor. Diane cut him off. We acknowledge emotional labor. This is legal ownership, and legally, Miss Ellis has no claim. Amanda turned to me, eyes wide with betrayal. You put everything in your parents' name. I held her gaze. No, they put everything in mine. I just never changed it. Her face lost color. The judge gave the verdict quickly, and just like that, the empire she thought she'd take half of slipped right through her fingers. She stormed out. I didn't follow, because this wasn't victory. This was survival. San Francisco, a NEW beginning the city, smelled different. Salt in the air, movement in the wind, a chill even the sun couldn't kill. I had been in San Francisco for 1 week. 1 week of rebuilding, 1 week of breathing without a battle waiting at home. The office was sleek, glass walls, soft lighting, people who moved like they were chasing something big and believing they'd catch it. My badge read, Ethan Ellis, Interim Product Lead, but really, it should have said, Reinvention in Progress. And then I met her, Valerie Pierce, manager, sharp mind, calm presence, beauty that didn't need attention, it commanded it quietly. She moved with purpose, a rhythm, a confidence that wasn't loud, just undeniable, our first real conversation. A challenge. I read your Bekend proposal, she said, sliding into a chair across from me. It's efficient, but the SSO layer is outdated. I blinked. You think the SSO is outdated? I know it is, she said with a soft smile. You just didn't want to refactor before the pitch. I leaned back, studying her. You always this direct, only when it matters. There was no arrogance, no ego, just precision. Later, she found me failing to operate the espresso machine. Hold the lever for 5 seconds, she said, grabbing a mug. Is this a code review or barista training? She laughed, a genuine, warm, unforced sound. A little of both. Then came the question, want to grab coffee sometime? She paused thoughtfully, not nervously. You mean outside the building? Yeah. Another pause. Okay, tomorrow. And that was the moment I realized she wasn't Amanda. She wasn't trying to fix me, break me, or mold me. She was just there, a presence, a possibility. The cafeteria doors shuddered again under the relentless pounding. The deep, rhythmic thud echoed through the building like a heartbeat gone wrong. Students huddled under tables and behind the counter, trembling so violently that their teeth chattered. The kitchen lights flickered once more, buzzing like angry insects. The hum of electricity wavered, an unstable pulse that made the air feel alive and hostile. A metal tray clattered off a shelf and rang out like a warning bell. Maya's breathing grew shallow, almost silent. I could feel the heat radiating off her trembling form. When I wrapped an arm around her shoulders, she stiffened, but then leaned in, accepting the human contact she needed more than anything. The door hammered again. Bang, bang, bang. The noise tore through the cafeteria like a storm. This time it was louder, harder, like something enormous was slamming into it with its full body weight. M.S. Harrington whispered a trembling prayer. Ben clutched his ankle and whimpered softly. Caleb stared at the door with eyes that burned, not with fear, but fury. And then silence. The sudden stillness was worse than the noise. It felt like the whole school was holding its breath. Maya's nails dug into my sleeve. Luke swallowed hard. Sasha pressed both hands over her mouth. Somewhere deeper in the school, a distant metallic scraping cut through the quiet. Slow, deliberate, like claws dragging across a locker. The sound slithered under the doorframe and crawled up my spine. Then we heard it, a voice, not quite human, not entirely animal, a warped, rasping whisper that scraped through the cracks around the cafeteria doors. Come out. Maya's knees buckled. I grabbed her before she slipped to the floor. The voice rasped again, longer this time, stretching like something trying to imitate speech it didn't understand. Little ones, Sasha started sobbing silently into her hands. Luke shook his head violently, mouthing no, no, no. The scraping grew louder, circling the hall just outside. Something heavy brushed against the metal door, denting it inward by half an inch. The room vibrated. I felt terror not just as fear, but as a presence, a shadow pressing against my chest. Caleb suddenly pushed himself upright, wobbling slightly before he steadied. His jaw was set, and his eyes were lit with something fierce and reckless. He limped toward the back storage room. I reached out and hissed, "Caleb, stop." But he didn't. He opened the storage door, slipped inside, and returned carrying a long metal broom handle, thick enough to be used as a staff. He gripped it, like he had every intention of using it. "What are you doing?" Maya whispered, horrified. Caleb's voice was low but firm. "If it breaks through, someone has to slow it down." "No." I grabbed his arm. "You don't get to play hero alone." His mouth twitched, not quite a smile, but something stubborn. "I'm not playing, I'm pissed." The metal door shuddered again, but this time gently, like something was tapping it with interest. Tap. Tap, tap. The tapping gradually shifted into knocking, soft, childlike. The entire room froze. "Help." A tiny voice whimpered from the other side of the door. Maya choked on a sob. That sounds like a kid, but it wasn't. Something about it was wrong, too hollow. Too echoing, too eager. Ben whimpered again, curling tighter around his ankle. "It's trying to trick us." I swallowed hard. No one opens that door, no matter what it sounds like. The knocking stopped abruptly. Another silence fell. And then the fire alarm exploded to life. The shrill screech stabbed into our ears. Red strobe lights flashed across the cafeteria, painting everything in violent pulses. Students screamed and ducked lower, thinking the creature had caused the alarm, but the creature reacted too. We heard it slam into the nearest locker with a guttural shriek, furious, pained, confused by the sudden sensory overload. Metal crunched as lockers buckled inward. It thrashed violently in the hallway. Bang. Crash bang. Every noise was followed by a roar that rattled the floor. Luke's voice cracked as he shouted over the alarm. "It hates the sound." Sasha nodded frantically. Yes, it's hurting it." Caleb tightened his grip on the broom handle. "Then this is our chance." "For what?" I yelled to move, and he was right. Students were cowering, but they weren't running. They were frozen in fear. Someone needed to lead, or we would die sitting still. I stood up next to Caleb. Maya grabbed my hand immediately, terrified but refusing to let me out of her sight. Luke and Sasha scrambled after us. We weren't the strongest or the bravest. We were just the ones who refused paralysis. I shouted loudly enough to cut through the alarm. "Everyone to the back exit now. Move." The students jolted into motion. Fear gave them speed. MS Harrington supported Ben as he hopped on one foot. Caleb and I positioned ourselves between the group and the main doors, the direction where the creature was thrashing. The air shook with its rage. We pushed toward the rear exit, moving as quickly as the group could manage. The hallway beyond the cafeteria was dim, lit only by the flashing red of the alarms. Shadows jerked and twisted with every blink, making it impossible to tell where danger might be. Halfway down the hall, a locker door smashed open in front of us, blasted outward from the inside. Maya screamed. Sasha tripped. Luke grabbed her, dragging her back to her feet. Then a giant shape flickered into view at the far end of the corridor. Just a silhouette, massive, hunched, wrong. Its head scraped the ceiling tiles as it moved. It turned toward us. And it roared. The sound was enough to make the floor vibrate. Light fixtures rattled violently. Students cried and stumbled. "Go," Caleb yelled, pushing the group ahead. "Don't look back. Run." We sprinted, all of us. No hesitation left. I held Maya's hand so tightly my knuckles burned. Ben cried from pain. MS Harrington whispered frantic encouragement. Sasha sobbed as she ran. Luke cursed under his breath nonstop. Behind us, the creature charged. Its footsteps weren't footsteps. They were earthquakes. A shockwave rolled through the floor with each impact. I could feel its speed, its power, its hunger. The back exit door came into view, a metal push, bar door leading out to the football field. "Just a bit more," I shouted. The group surged forward. Caleb and I held back, slowing our pace just enough to stay between the others and the monstrous silhouette growing rapidly larger behind us. When we reached the door, I shoved Maya and the others through first. Caleb looked at me, breathless. On 3, but the creature reached us before we hit 1. We didn't see its face, just its size, blocking the emergency lights. Just its presence, dark and ancient and furious. A massive arm swung toward us. Caleb shoved me through the door. The blow caught him in the side. He flew across the hall like a rag doll, crashing into the trophy case. Glass exploded around him. Caleb. I tried to go back in, but Maya grabbed me, screaming, "No, no, you can't." I fought her grip desperately, my heart splitting open, but then I heard the creature barreling toward the exit. The metal door bowed inward as it slammed its weight against it. We had seconds. I grabbed the push bar and let the door close fully. Then I locked it. The creature hit it again and again and again. Metal twisted, bolts screeched, sparks flew from the hinges. The entire frame shook violently, but it held for a moment, just a moment, long enough for students to sprint across the football field toward safety, long enough for teachers to gather them, long enough for police sirens to begin echoing in the distance, long enough for me to stand there, staring at the door, feeling my heart break for the boy who shielded us all. The banging continued, fury, pain, desperation, then it stopped. The metal door dented outward in one final convulsive shape, and then the hallway fell silent. The creature was gone. When the police arrived, they evacuated everyone and sealed off the building. The cafeteria, the hallways, the lockers, every place the creature touched was scarred, bent, destroyed. But Caleb survived, barely. They pulled him from the rubble, bloodied, bruised, but breathing. When I saw him later in the hospital, he looked at me with hollow eyes and said, "Tell me it wasn't real. I couldn't lie." No one could, because all of us heard it. All of us felt it. All of us knew. Something had come for us that day. And it wasn't done, not by a long shot.